Well, hey, Connect Groups, I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited for what's happening in this season and specifically in this series. I know in some ways it's a difficult series in that we are getting into the nitty-gritty of what we need to change in our lives concerning finances. Finances are such a personal thing, so to talk about it's tough, to acknowledge where we've fallen short is tough, to make changes is tough. So I get it. It might not be the most fun we've ever had in a season of Connect Groups, but I do believe it potentially can be the biggest change that we've seen in our individual lives and in our community. So I just want to say I'm proud of you for wrestling with these truths. I'm proud of you for responding. And we are hearing testimonies week after week about people who are actually changing this area in their life. And I promise you, it will make a tremendous difference in your life, not just in your finances, but it will make a difference in every area, in your relationships, in your relationship with God, so in the spiritual element of your life. And you'll find that you'll have more peace because you've surrendered this area to God. So I just want to thank you for that. All right, so let me do a quick recap of this past Sunday. So what we were talking about this past Sunday is continuing the idea of talking about idolatry. So idolatry is by far the biggest threat to our relationship with God. It's why God, when he introduced himself to the Israelites and gave them his commandments, specifically those first 10, he began by saying, here's where our relationship begins. There's not going to be another God. You're not going to worship someone else. You're not going to make idols, statues of them and worship it. It has to be me and me alone. It has to be me as a priority. So over the last 3 weeks, we've talked about this. We've talked about how desire tries to lead us away, and so we have to set priorities. I gave the image of a budget and what that does. Then the next week, we talked about how fear can lead us to idolatry, and so we talked about how we have to walk in obedience in order to connect the physical and the spiritual. But then this past Sunday, we addressed a specific idol that has the potential to be the most destructive in our lives, and that idol is debt. Debt is not something that's fun to talk about. It's something that really is gripping our culture. It's destroying our culture. We are more in debt than any generation in human history, and it's not getting any better. All statistics will point to the fact that it's getting dramatically worse. And why does this matter? Because when you get into debt, debt becomes a god. It starts to tell you how you are going to spend your monies. It starts to dictate how you're going to feel in life. So this past Sunday, we looked at it, and we looked at it in comparison to the nation of Israel. When they first walked out of captivity and God started to speak to them, he gave them a warning. And he said, never allow your hearts to go to false gods. Never allow your hearts to start to worship idols. And he paints this really bleak picture saying, if you do, your whole life will be captivated by these false gods, and ultimately it will lead to your destruction, because he said, as a loving father, he would discipline them, he would exile them. But then he made the promise, from that place, if you'll repent, then I'll receive you back. But he gives this incredible warning right in the beginning. Where we see it end before God exiles them is the nation of Israel had become the worst possible. They were worshiping other gods to the point where they were sacrificing their own children. So these gods had become so oppressive to them that it was controlling every element of their lives, even to the point where they were killing their own children. So now we look at that and we compare it to debt. Our culture, we are so controlled by money, the love of money, that it's led us to buy into this idea that debt can give us more. In reality, it doesn't give us more, it takes more. It controls us and enslaves us. And so I think that those analogies go hand in hand. The same way that Israel turned to these false gods, hoping for more, and they got less, we do the same thing with money and take on debt. We hope for more, and we get less. So what's the response? There's only one response that's proper for idolatry. You have to cast down those idols. You have to do whatever is necessary to overcome the things that you've allowed to take a place of priority in your heart. So this is the challenge. What are we going to do as a church? I don't believe all debt is bad, and we talked about that a little bit on Sunday. The book talks about it, I think, really well. But we have to have a heart that if there's any negative debt in our lives, that we have to do whatever is necessary to tear it down, that idol. So my prayer is that you are responding well to this, that you guys just have something in your hearts that has clicked and you're ready to do the tough work to get out of debt. Because for some of you, we're talking, this will be a process that will go for years, but I'll tell you, it's absolutely worth it. So I hope your discussion goes well. I hope your time together is blessed. I love you. I'm so proud of you. I'll see you this Sunday.